my son's dad said that there was something going on, so I rushed up, and he's in 5th grade, and so I wanted just clarification of what happened, and they weren't releasing, so I called my daughter and my sister and friends, and they called the sheriff's department and said that there were 2 kids shot and I think a teacher.
Teacher, a classroom full of children with special needs, but in just seconds, the man she once trusted walked in and opened fire. What happened inside room B1 isn't just another school shooting, it's one of the most disturbing betrayals you'll ever hear. Karen Elaine Smith spent her life in service of others. To many, she wasn't just a teacher, she was a light in a system that often forgets the children who struggle the most. At 53 years old, she taught special education at North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino, California. Her classroom was filled with energy, empathy, and care. It was where children with learning difficulties, emotional disorders, and disabilities could feel understood. Karen believed in her students. She didn't just teach them math or reading. She taught them patience, self-love, and the belief that they were capable of more. Former students remembered her as the kind of teacher who stayed after class to help you calm down during a meltdown. The one who learned every student's triggers and sensitivities and treated them like individuals, not numbers in a system. She was the kind of person who gave quietly, without asking for recognition. She had worked in education for over a decade, and although she had no biological children of her own, she treated each student like family. Her life was full of purpose, and her days were filled with laughter, small victories, and hugs from students who didn't give them easily. But behind Karen's gentle spirit was also a woman looking for companionship, someone who could match her warmth with steadiness. In late 2016, Karen met Cedric Anderson through mutual friends on Facebook. He was a pastor, a man of God, well-spoken, charismatic, and confident. To those who knew her, it seemed like a good match. Cedric presented himself as a former Navy serviceman, a religious leader, and a man who respected women. On social media, he shared inspirational quotes, videos of his sermons, and photos of him dressed in fine suits, smiling with a Bible in hand. He spoke often about love, commitment, and family values. They dated quickly. Within months, they were married in what friends described as a joyful but sudden ceremony. The photos told a story of happiness. Karen in a beautiful dress, Cedric smiling proudly beside her. But it didn't take long for that image to shatter. Just weeks after the wedding, Karen confided in close friends that Cedric was not the man he pretended to be. The charm quickly gave way to suspicion. Cedric grew jealous, accusing Karen of hiding things, being disloyal, and lying. He would call her repeatedly, question her every movement, and become irate if she didn't respond fast enough. The emotional abuse crept in like fog, quiet but suffocating. Friends say she began to withdraw. She no longer spoke of him with joy, and soon she was sleeping in a separate room. Then she moved out entirely. Karen had the courage to separate from him just a few months after their marriage began. She told her family that she feared his temper, that she needed space, that something didn't feel right. But even then, she never imagined he would hurt her. There were no restraining orders filed, no police reports, no dramatic fights caught on camera. Just a woman quietly removing herself from a man she thought she knew, trying to protect herself without drawing attention. What Karen didn't know was that Cedric had a history, a long and troubling one. Years earlier, multiple women had accused Cedric Anderson of domestic violence. One former girlfriend filed a report alleging that he pointed a gun at her during an argument. Another woman claimed that he had held a pillow over her face during a fight. Yet none of those allegations had ever resulted in charges that stuck. Like so many abusers, Cedric moved on and reinvented himself again and again. Karen, being the kind-hearted person she was, likely believed in his version of the story, that he was misunderstood or that the past was behind him. She wanted to believe people could change, but predators often hide behind charm, and Cedric had perfected the mask. By April 2017, Karen was trying to move on. She returned to school and focused on her students. Her classroom became her refuge, a space filled with love, support, and order. But Cedric wasn't done with her, and no one, not Karen, not her students, not her coworkers, knew that he was about to walk into her classroom with a gun in his briefcase and vengeance in his heart. Monday, April 10th, 2017, began like any other school day. North Park Elementary School opened its gates at 7:45 a.m. Kids laughed as they walked to class. Teachers welcomed them with smiles. In room B1, Karen Smith was already setting up her materials. It was a day like so many others in her career, but it would end unlike any other. Around 10 a.m., while classes were in full swing, Cedric Anderson arrived at the school. He didn't sneak in through a window or break through a locked door. He walked right in through the front office. He was calm, controlled. He carried a black briefcase in his left hand. He told the front desk staff he was there to drop off something for his wife, Karen. Cedric had visited the school once before, during their brief marriage, so no one questioned him. There were no alarms, no red flags. No one knew that inside the briefcase was a .357 Magnum revolver loaded with hollow point bullets. Cedric moved with eerie precision down the hallway. He turned left at the main corridor, past the library, and walked straight toward room B1. Inside, Karen was in the middle of a lesson. 15 students, all with special needs, sat at their desks or workstations, accompanied by 2 aides. There was no panic when Cedric entered the room. Karen may have been surprised, but she didn't scream. Maybe she thought he'd just come to talk. Maybe she assumed it would be brief, that he would leave. No one had time to react. Without a single word, Cedric Anderson pulled the revolver from his briefcase and opened fire. In rapid succession, he fired 4 rounds. His first target was Karen. She was shot at close range, collapsing in front of her class. But standing directly behind her, unseen by Cedric, was 8-year-old Jonathan Martinez. The bullet passed through Karen's body and struck him. Another bullet hit a second student, a 9-year-old boy whose name was never publicly released. Then, just as calmly as he entered, Cedric turned the gun on himself. He fired a final shot into his own head. What followed was chaos. The sound of gunfire sent shockwaves through the building. Students and teachers in nearby classrooms froze. Some assumed it was construction noise. Others knew instantly something was wrong. One of the classroom aides in room B1 managed to run out and alert the front office. The school resource officer was the first to respond. Within minutes, police were flooding the campus. North Park Elementary went into lockdown. Doors were bolted, lights turned off. Children hid in closets, crouching beneath desks as they had practiced during active shooter drills. Only this time, it was real. Emergency responders stormed room B1. Karen Smith was already gone, so was Cedric. Jonathan Martinez was still breathing, but barely. He was quickly airlifted to Loma Linda University Children's Hospital. Doctors worked desperately to save him, but just hours later, Jonathan succumbed to his injuries. The second boy, though wounded, survived. He would recover physically, but the psychological wounds would linger long after the bandages came off.
Right. What we are learning happened this morning here, Jake, is that there was an adult male who entered a classroom to visit this classroom, and that he then shot a female adult who was in that classroom before turning the gun on himself and killing himself. We also know that 2 children in the classroom were also injured. They're in critical condition, and what we understand is one was taken by ambulance, one was airlifted, and they do not believe that those children were targeted or that they were related to either this man or this woman, but just happened to be in close proximity of that woman, and that is why that they were injured. We also know that at this point they have not found a note. There was nothing on this male adult to explain why this would have happened. And also we know that the school is going to be closed for the next couple of days while they do research this. Let me just show you what's behind me here right now, just give you a perspective of what's happening. They're having the adults, the parents, the guardians come here to this high school, which is right down the street, Cajon High School. They're processing them, making sure that they are the guardian, the parent who's allowed to come and get their child. The children are going to the Cal State University that's nearby, Cal State University Santa Barbara. They are having the children there, and then they're slowly bringing the parents there to reunite them, as they also need to process some of these children and talk to them and see what they may have seen. Same thing with some of the people who may work at this elementary school. Still developing here, but what it looks like is that it may be a potential murder-suicide that happened here inside this elementary school. Jake.
The suspect by the name of Cedric Anderson, Cedric Anderson. He is 53 years old. He's a resident of Riverside. Cedric Anderson is the husband of the teacher of the classroom, who's identified as Karen, Karen, Elaine, Elaine, Smith, Smith. She too is 53 years old. As I said, she is the teacher. Cedric entered the classroom, and from what we understand, without saying anything, armed with a large caliber revolver, opened fire on his wife. She was killed in that exchange. There are 2 students in the classroom that were behind the teacher that were struck by gunfire. One of those children is identified as Jonathan Martinez, common spelling. He's 8 years old. He was taken to Loma Linda University Medical Center via helicopter, airlifted out almost immediately as soon as we can get resources there. Tragically, he has passed away.
4 bullets fired, 3 victims shot, 2 dead, 1 survivor, all within 90 seconds. It was over in less than 2 minutes. Cedric Anderson had walked in, murdered his estranged wife, killed a child, wounded another, and then taken his own life. But the damage he caused was permanent. The children in that classroom were never the same. The families who waited outside in horror, the first responders who entered that room, and the school that would forever carry the scars of what happened on April 10th, 2017.